The piercing scream cut through the peaceful morning air at Sandpiper Beach, jolting Theo Evans from his tired reverie as he watched his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, meticulously constructing a sandcastle at the water's edge. His eyes darted toward the sound, narrowing against the bright Florida sun, and that's when he spotted her, a woman with dark hair thrashing against the powerful current, her arm raised in a desperate plea for help before she disappeared beneath the churning waves. "Stay right here, Lily. Don't move," he commanded, his heart hammering as he kicked off his worn flip-flops. "Daddy has to help someone." "But Daddy," Lily clutched her plastic shovel, her eyes wide with concern. "Don't go in the water, Mrs. Martinez is right there." Theo pointed to the elderly woman reading under a nearby umbrella who had already looked up at the commotion. "I'll be right back." Without waiting for the lifeguard, who was still running down the beach from his distant post, Theo sprinted across the hot sand and plunged into the ocean. The salt water soaked through his faded t-shirt and cargo shorts as he swam powerfully through the breaking waves. 8 years, as a competitive swimmer in high school and college, hadn't been wasted, even if those glory days were far behind the struggling 32-year-old single father. The rip current caught him almost immediately, its invisible force pulling him seaward. Rather than fighting it directly, Theo swam parallel to the shore as he'd been taught, working his way across the current until he spotted the woman again, her head barely above water. "I'm coming," he shouted, pushing himself harder. "Stay calm." When he reached her, she was barely conscious, coughing and sputtering. Her expensive gold bracelet glinted in the sunlight as he wrapped his arm around her chest from behind. "I've got you." "Don't struggle," he said firmly, beginning the arduous swim back to shore, careful to avoid the same current that had dragged her out. The woman was limp in his arms, but he could feel her breathing. By the time his feet touched sand again, the lifeguard had arrived to help, and a small crowd had gathered. "Daddy!" Lily's voice pierced through the commotion as Mrs. Martinez held his daughter's hand at a safe distance. "Is she breathing?" the lifeguard asked, helping Theo lay the woman on the sand. "Yes," Theo gasped, dropping to his knees beside her. The woman's eyes fluttered open, striking emerald green against her sun-kissed skin, and for a moment, Theo forgot the exhaustion burning through his muscles. "Thank you," she whispered, water trickling from the corner of her mouth as she coughed. Paramedics arrived within minutes, pushing through the onlookers. As they took over, Theo retreated to Lily, scooping his daughter into a wet hug. "You're all wet, Daddy," she giggled, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "Yeah, Princess, that happens when you go swimming with your clothes on." He kissed her forehead, watching as the paramedics helped the woman sit up. "Is the lady okay?" Lily asked, her voice small with concern. "I think she will be." Theo gathered their belongings, the threadbare beach towels, the cooler with their simple lunch of peanut butter sandwiches, Lily's bucket of seashells preparing to leave and salvage what remained of their precious Saturday together. He had an evening shift at the restaurant, and Mrs. Martinez couldn't babysit forever. "Wait!" The voice came from behind him as he was loading their things into his beat-up Jeep. The woman from the water was walking toward them, wrapped in a silver emergency blanket. Her wet hair hung in dark tendrils around a face that Theo now recognized with a jolt of surprise. "You're leaving without letting me properly thank you?" she asked, her voice stronger now. "You should be resting," Theo replied, suddenly self-conscious of his dripping clothes and the rust spots on his vehicle. "I declined transport to the hospital. I'm fine, thanks to you." She extended her hand. "I'm Rachel Zimmerman." Theo knew exactly who she was. Everyone in Tampa knew the Zimmerman name. The family owned half the waterfront property in the area and had just completed a controversial luxury resort a mile up the beach. "Theo Evans," he said, shaking her hand awkwardly. "And this is my daughter, Lily." "Hi," Lily said shyly, partially hiding behind her father's leg. Rachel knelt down to Lily's level. "Hello, Lily. Your dad is quite the hero." "He's the best daddy ever," Lily declared with absolute certainty. Rachel smiled, then looked up at Theo. I'd really like to thank you properly. Would you accept an invitation to dinner? That's really not necessary, please, she insisted. I owe you my life. Theo hesitated. Between his 2 jobs morning shifts at the construction site and evenings waiting tables and taking care of Lily, he barely had time to breathe, let alone socialize. And dining with someone like Rachel Zimmerman seemed impossibly out of his league. I have to work tonight, he finally said. Tomorrow then, she pressed, her green eyes earnest. At my house. Bring Lily, of course. Before Theo could formulate another excuse, Lily piped up. We're free tomorrow. Daddy always makes Sunday special day. Rachel's face lit up. Perfect, special day it is. She took out her phone, which somehow had survived her near drowning, and they exchanged numbers. As Theo drove away, glancing at Rachel in his rearview mirror as she spoke with the lifeguard, he wondered what he had just gotten himself into. She was pretty, Daddy, Lily observed from her booster seat. She was, Theo agreed, trying not to think about how Rachel's wet sundress had clung to her athletic figure, or how her eyes had sparkled with a mix of gratitude and something else when she looked at him. And she has a big house. I saw it in the magazine at Dr. Patel's office. Theo sighed. Don't get too excited, Lil. We're just going for dinner to be polite. But as he drove toward their modest 2-bedroom apartment, he couldn't help but feel a flutter of anticipation beneath his practical resolve. The next day, Theo spent the morning obsessing over what to wear. His wardrobe consisted primarily of work clothes, none suitable for dinner at what was undoubtedly a mansion. He finally settled on his one decent pair of dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt he usually reserved for parent-teacher conferences. You look handsome, Daddy, Lily approved as she twirled in her favorite purple dress, her brown curls so like her mother's bouncing around her shoulders. And you look beautiful, Princess, he said, his throat tight with sudden emotion. Single parenthood had never been his plan. But after Lily's mother decided that family life wasn't for her and left when Lily was just 2, he'd devoted himself to giving his daughter all the love and stability he could provide. Following Rachel's texted directions, they drove to the exclusive Harbor Island area, Theo's ancient Jeep looking increasingly out of place as the homes grew larger and more opulent. They pulled up to a modern glass and stone structure overlooking the bay, where a valet for a private residence waited at the circular driveway. Wow, Lily whispered, pressing her nose against the car window. Is this where a princess lives? Something like that, Theo muttered, suddenly feeling like he'd made a terrible mistake. The valet opened Lily's door with a friendly smile. Mr. Evans and Miss Evans, Miss Zimmerman is expecting you. Theo reluctantly handed over his keys, acutely aware of the duct tape holding together the driver's side armrest. Rachel greeted them at the door herself, looking nothing like the drowning woman from yesterday. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she wore a simple but obviously expensive sundress that highlighted her toned arms and the graceful curve of her neck. You came, she said, her smile genuine. I'm so glad. We brought these, Lily announced, proudly holding up a small bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked from the patch behind their apartment building. They're beautiful, Rachel exclaimed, accepting them with exaggerated delight. Let's put them in water right away. She led them through the house, all soaring ceilings, glass walls, and minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Theo's annual income to a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. I thought we'd eat on the terrace, Rachel said, placing the flowers in a crystal vase. It's such a beautiful evening. The terrace overlooked the bay, the water shimmering gold and pink in the setting sun. A table was set with fine china and crystal that made Theo nervous just looking at it. Do you live here all alone? Lily asked, peering over the edge of the terrace at the infinity pool below. Lily, Theo admonished gently, that's a personal question. It's fine, Rachel laughed. Yes, I do, Lily, just me in this big house. Seems silly, doesn't it? Where are your kids? Lily continued her interrogation. I don't have any children, Rachel answered, a flicker of something sadness perhaps crossing her face. Why not? Kids are the best, Lily declared with absolute confidence. Lily, that's enough questions, Theo said more firmly, but Rachel waved him off. I never found the right time, I suppose, she told Lily. I've been very busy with work. What do you do? Theo asked, genuinely curious about the woman behind the famous name. Officially, I'm the CEO of Zimmerman Developments, she said, pouring sparkling water for Lily and offering Theo wine, which he declined. But lately, I've been focusing on our charitable foundation. We're building a community center in East Tampa with affordable childcare facilities and job training programs. Theo's eyebrows rose in surprise. The Zimmermans weren't exactly known for their philanthropy, quite the opposite, in fact. That's not what I expected, he admitted. Rachel's expression turned wry. You mean because my family is known for building overpriced condos and displacing local businesses? I didn't say that. You didn't have to, she sighed. It's a fair assessment of my father's business model. I've been trying to change our company's direction since I took over 3 years ago. That can't be easy, Theo commented, warming to her slightly. It's not, she agreed, but nearly drowning puts things in perspective. A personal chef, because of course there was a personal chef, served an exquisite meal that even the picky Lily devoured with enthusiasm. Throughout dinner, Rachel asked Theo about himself, listening with genuine interest as he reluctantly shared bits of his life, his construction job, his evening work at the restaurant, his struggles and joys as a single parent. And what about Lily's mother? Rachel asked quietly while Lily was distracted by the dessert being prepared. She left when Lily was 2, Theo replied, his voice flat. Decided parenthood wasn't for her. Last I heard, she was in California. I'm sorry, Rachel said, her hand briefly touching his across the table. That must have been difficult. We manage, Theo said simply, pulling his hand away, uncomfortable with both her touch and her sympathy. After dinner, Rachel showed Lily the pool, and before Theo could object, his daughter was splashing happily in the shallow end while Rachel sat with her feet dangling in the water, her dress hiked up to reveal tanned, toned legs. You don't have to entertain us like this, Theo said, sitting in a nearby chair. I'm enjoying myself, Rachel replied, watching Lily with a soft smile. Your daughter is delightful. She's my whole world, Theo admitted. Rachel looked at him thoughtfully. You're very different from the men I usually meet. I imagine so, he laughed without humor. Most of your social circle probably doesn't shop at discount stores or worry about making rent. That's not what I meant, she said quietly. I meant you're genuine, you care about things that matter. Later, as they were leaving, Rachel walked them to the driveway where the valet had brought around Theo's Jeep. Thank you for coming, she said, then added hesitantly, I'd like to see you again, both of you. Theo hesitated. Rachel, I appreciate the dinner, but let's be realistic. We live in completely different worlds. Maybe that's exactly why we should see each other again, she countered, her green eyes challenging him. Before he could respond, Lily piped up from beside him. Can we come back and swim again? Rachel laughed. Anytime, Lily, you're always welcome. As they drove home, Lily chattering excitedly about the pool and the fancy lady's house, Theo tried to convince himself that this would be the end of it. A thank you dinner, obligation fulfilled on both sides. But when his phone chimed with a text message at a red light, his heart skipped as he read Rachel's words. The pool is lonely without Lily. Next weekend, against his better judgment, Theo found himself typing back, We'll check our schedule. He didn't expect Rachel to become a regular part of their lives, but over the following weeks, that's exactly what happened. It started with pool visits that expanded into dinners, then outings to the aquarium, the children's museum, and a local fair where Rachel delighted in experiencing cotton candy and carnival rides with the enthusiasm of someone who'd missed out on such simple pleasures growing up. Theo learned that, beneath her polished exterior, was a woman who worked 18-hour days trying to redirect her family's controversial business empire, who had strained relationships with her demanding father and jet-setting mother, and who found genuine joy in Lily's uncomplicated affection. "Why do you like spending time with us?" Theo asked one evening as they watched Lily feed ducks at the park after sharing a simple picnic dinner Rachel's idea, to his surprise. "Because when I'm with you, I'm just Rachel," she said. "Not a Zimmerman, not a CEO, not my father's disappointment or my mother's project. Just me." "And who is just Rachel?" he asked, watching the breeze play with her hair. She considered this seriously. "I'm still figuring that out, but I know I like who I am when I'm with you and Lily." As summer progressed, Theo found himself looking forward to their time together, even as he tried to maintain emotional distance. Rachel was beautiful, intelligent, and surprisingly down to earth, but he couldn't ignore the reality of their situations. She might be slumming it with them for now, finding some exotic appeal in their ordinary lives, but eventually she would return fully to her world of board meetings and charity galas. The real wake-up call came when Theo arrived at Rachel's house one evening to pick up Lily after Rachel had taken her shopping for school supplies, a gesture he'd reluctantly accepted after Lily outgrew most of her clothes over the summer. He found Rachel and Lily in the kitchen, laughing as they prepared cookies from scratch, flour dusting both their faces. The scene was so domestic, so perfect, that it physically hurt to witness. This was exactly the kind of family moment he had always wanted for Lily and for himself. "Daddy," Lily exclaimed when she spotted him. "Rachel is teaching me how to make cookies the hard way, not from the tube." "I see that," he said, forcing a smile. "Having fun, the best, and look at my new clothes." She pointed to several shopping bags on a nearby chair. "Rachel said I needed a proper school wardrobe." Theo's jaw tightened. "That's very generous, but we talked about this, Rachel." Rachel wiped her hands on a dish towel, her expression turning cautious. "It's just a few things, Theo. She's growing so fast." "Can I show Daddy my new shoes?" Lily asked, oblivious to the tension. "Of course, sweetheart. They're in the bag with the pink tissue paper," Rachel said, and Lily darted off to retrieve them. Once Lily was out of earshot, Theo lowered his voice. "We agreed you wouldn't buy her things without discussing it with me first." "They're just clothes, Theo. She needed them." "That's for me to decide," he said firmly. "I'm her father, I provide for her." Rachel's eyes flashed. "I'm not trying to replace you or undermine you, I just wanted to help." "I don't need your help," he snapped, then immediately regretted his tone. Rachel stepped back as if he'd slapped her. "I know you don't need it, but is it so terrible to accept it anyway?" Before he could answer, Lily returned, proudly modeling her new sneakers with light-up soles. His daughter's happiness stopped the argument in its tracks, but the ride home was quieter than usual, with Lily eventually falling asleep in the back seat. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Theo sat on his small balcony, nursing a beer and replaying the scene in his mind. His phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. It wasn't my intention." He stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I know, I overreacted, but you have to understand my pride is sometimes all I have." Her reply came quickly. "You have so much more than that, Theo. You have integrity, strength, and the love of an amazing little girl. That's worth more than anything money can buy." Their relationship shifted after that night. Rachel became more careful about respecting Theo's boundaries, and he made more effort to understand her intentions. They began to find a delicate balance, with Rachel finding ways to enrich their lives without undermining Theo's role or pride. When Lily's school announced an expensive field trip to a marine science center that Theo couldn't afford, Rachel suggested she needed to evaluate it for a potential foundation donation and invited them along. When Theo's Jeep finally broke down beyond repair, she connected him with a client who needed a construction manager for a small project work that paid enough for a decent used car. Theo found himself opening up more, sharing his dreams of someday starting his own construction company focusing on affordable, sustainable housing. Rachel listened with genuine interest, occasionally offering business insights that he had to admit were valuable. "You could do it, you know," she told him one evening as they sat on his small apartment balcony after Lily was asleep. "Start small, focus on quality work, build a reputation." "Maybe someday," he said with a shrug, "when Lily's older and expenses are fewer, or maybe sooner," Rachel suggested. With the right support and planning, Theo gave her a skeptical look. "Are you offering to be my investor, Miss Zimmerman? Would that be so terrible?" she asked, her voice soft in the darkness. "Yes," he said firmly. "I need to do this on my own." Rachel's silence spoke volumes, and when she finally responded, her voice held a trace of hurt. "Do you know what I admire most about you, Theo? Your independence. But sometimes I wonder if it's also what might keep you from happiness." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," she said carefully, "that being strong doesn't always mean doing everything alone." The words lingered between them, and for the first time, Theo allowed himself to truly consider what was happening between them. Rachel wasn't just Lily's wealthy friend or some passing phase in their lives. Somewhere along the way, despite his determined resistance, she had become important to him, too important. The realization terrified him. 2 days later, Rachel called to invite them to her family's annual charity gala. "I'd like you both to be my guests," she said. "It's for the community center project." "A black tie event with Tampa's elite," Theo laughed. "Not exactly our scene, Rachel." "It's important to me," she said quietly. "Please." Lily, of course, was thrilled at the prospect of dressing up like a princess. And Theo reluctantly agreed, even as anxiety churned in his stomach at the thought of entering Rachel's world so publicly. The night of the gala arrived, and Theo found himself in a rented tuxedo that felt like a costume, driving toward the luxury hotel where the event was being held. Lily bounced excitedly beside him in a new dress that Rachel had insisted on having made especially for her. "Are we going to see Rachel's mommy and daddy?" Lily asked. "Probably," Theo replied, adjusting his bow tie for the 100th time. "Be on your best behavior, okay? I'm always good," Lily said with such indignation that Theo had to laugh. Rachel was waiting for them at the entrance, breathtaking in an emerald gown that matched her eyes. When she saw them, her face lit up, and she hurried over, heedless of the curious glances from the arriving guests. "You came," she said, taking Theo's hand. "Thank you." "Wow," he managed, momentarily speechless at the sight of her. "You look incredible." "You clean up pretty well yourself, Mr. Evans," she smiled, then bent down to Lily's level. "And you, Miss Lily, are absolutely beautiful." Lily twirled in her dress. "I'm a princess tonight." "Yes, you are," Rachel agreed, taking her hand. "Come meet some people who are very excited to see you." The next 2 hours were a blur of introductions, polite conversation, and trying to ensure Lily didn't spill anything on her dress. Theo was acutely aware of the curious looks and whispered comments that followed them, but Rachel remained firmly by his side, her hand occasionally touching his arm or back in a gesture that felt both supportive and possessive. "Rachel, darling, there you are." The voice cut through the ambient chatter, and Rachel tensed beside him. A tall, elegantly dressed older woman approached, her shrewd eyes assessing Theo and Lily with undisguised curiosity. "Mother," Rachel said, her smile becoming more formal. "I'd like you to meet Theo Evans and his daughter, Lily. Theo, Lily, this is my mother, Victoria Zimmerman." "The famous rescuer," Victoria said, extending her hand to Theo. "We've heard so much about you." "A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Zimmerman," Theo replied, shaking her hand firmly. Victoria's attention shifted to Lily. "And this lovely young lady must be the one who's stolen my daughter's heart." Lily, suddenly shy, pressed against Theo's leg but managed a polite hello. "Rachel, your father is looking for you," Victoria said. "Something about the McLaren donation." "I'll find him in a moment," Rachel replied, her voice tight. Victoria lingered, her gaze moving between Theo and Rachel with calculated assessment. Don't wait too long. You know how he gets. With a final appraising look at Theo, she glided away. Sorry about that, Rachel murmured. She seems intimidating, Theo offered diplomatically. You have no idea, Rachel sighed. I should probably find my father before I what, Rachel? A distinguished man with steel gray hair and Rachel's green eyes approached, his expression coolly professional. Dad, Rachel said, straightening imperceptibly. I'd like you to meet Theo and Lily Evans. Theo, Lily, this is my father, Howard Zimmerman. Howard extended his hand to Theo. So you're the construction worker who saved my daughter. The slight emphasis on construction worker wasn't lost on Theo. It was nothing anyone wouldn't have done, he replied evenly. Perhaps, Howard said, his gaze penetrating. Though I'm curious why my daughter feels compelled to continue expressing her gratitude 3 months later. Dad, Rachel warned quietly. Howard ignored her, his attention now on Lily. And you must be the young lady I've heard so much about. Are you enjoying yourself, child? Lily, in a surprising show of confidence, nodded. Yes, sir. Rachel got me a special dress for tonight. I see that, Howard said, his expression softening slightly. It's very pretty. Thank you, Lily replied. My daddy looks handsome too, doesn't he? Howard's eyes returned to Theo, reassessing. Indeed. Rachel, when you have a moment, the McLarens are waiting to discuss their contribution. After he walked away, Rachel let out a breath. That actually went better than expected. He doesn't approve of me, Theo stated flatly. He doesn't approve of most people, Rachel replied with forced lightness. It's his default setting. The rest of the evening passed in a similar fashion, moments of enjoyment, interrupted by the unmistakable sense that Theo was being evaluated and found wanting by Rachel's social circle. By the time Lily began yawning, Theo was more than ready to leave. I should get her home, he told Rachel, who was in conversation with a potential donor. Of course, she said, excusing herself. Let me walk you out. At the valet stand, Lily half asleep in Theo's arms, Rachel touched his face gently. Thank you for coming tonight. It meant a lot to me. It was an experience, he said, trying to smile. Rachel studied his face. You hated it. Not all of it, he said honestly, but it made some things very clear. What things? She asked, her voice suddenly wary. This isn't my world, Rachel, he said quietly, gesturing at the luxury hotel. These aren't my people. They could be, she insisted. They just need to get to know you. Theo shook his head. That's not the point. I don't want them to be my people. I don't want this life. Is that what you think I'm offering, this? She waved at the hotel. I thought you knew me better than that by now. I do know you, he said gently. But you're part of this world whether you want to be or not. And I can't what, Theo? Her eyes flashed. Can't be with someone from a different background. Can't accept that someone like me might genuinely care about someone like you? That's not fair, he said, shifting Lily in his arms as she stirred. None of this is fair, Rachel replied, her voice tight with emotion. But it's real. What I feel for you and Lily is real. Before Theo could respond, the valet pulled up with his car, and the moment was broken. He carefully settled Lily in her booster seat before turning back to Rachel. I need some time to think, he said finally. Fine, she replied, her expression carefully composed now. Take all the time you need. But Theo, don't think too long. He drove home in silence, Lily sleeping soundly in the back seat, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. By the time he carried his daughter to bed and sat alone in his quiet apartment, he had reached a difficult decision. The following morning, he texted Rachel. Can we talk? Just us. They met at a quiet park halfway between their homes, sitting on a bench overlooking a small pond. Rachel arrived looking uncharacteristically uncertain, her usual confidence dimmed. Before you say anything, she began, I want you to know that I understand your concerns. Last night was overwhelming, and my parents were— This isn't about your parents, Theo interrupted gently. Or the gala or any of that, not really. Then what is it about? It's about being realistic, he said, looking out at the water. From the beginning, I've been waiting for you to realize that our lives are too different, that this whatever this is between us can't work long term. That's not your decision to make alone, Rachel said, her voice steady. I know what I want, Theo. I want you and Lily in my life, not as some charitable project or passing phase, but because you make me happier than I've ever been. And what happens when the novelty wears off? He asked. When you get tired of adapting to my schedule, my budget, my limitations. Is that what you think this is? A novelty? Hurt flashed in her eyes. After all these months, Theo ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I don't know what to think anymore. I just know that I can't risk Lily getting her heart broken when you eventually move on. Or is it your heart you're protecting? Rachel challenged softly. The question hit him like a physical blow. Maybe it is, he admitted after a long moment. Lily's mother leaving nearly destroyed me. I can't go through that again. I'm not Lily's mother, Rachel said firmly. I would never walk away from someone I love. The word hung between them, neither acknowledging nor denying it. I had a lot of time to think last night, Theo continued. About what I want, what Lily needs, what might actually be possible between us. Rachel tensed beside him. And I realized something, he said, finally turning to look at her directly. I've been so focused on all the reasons this couldn't work that I never stopped to consider that maybe, just maybe, it could. The hope that dawned on Rachel's face was almost painfully beautiful. What are you saying, Theo? I'm saying I'm terrified, he admitted. I'm saying that falling for you was never part of my plan, but I'm also saying that I can't imagine my life, our lives, without you in it now. Rachel moved closer, taking his hands in hers. I'm scared too. Do you think this is easy for me? I've spent my entire life keeping people at arm's length, protecting myself from those who only wanted my name or my money. And then you came along, this stubborn, proud man who keeps trying to push me away, even as he pulls me closer. Theo laughed softly. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Yes, we are, she agreed, squeezing his hands. So what do we do now? We take it one day at a time, he said. We be honest about our fears and our hopes. We stop worrying about whether this makes sense on paper and focus on the fact that when we're together, it just feels right. I can work with that, Rachel smiled, relief evident in her voice. There's one more thing, Theo added seriously. I need you to understand that while I appreciate your generosity, I need to stand on my own. Whatever happens between us, I have to make my own way professionally. I understand, Rachel nodded. Though I hope you'll at least let me introduce you to people who might benefit from your skills. Not as charity, but because you're genuinely talented. I can accept that, he conceded. And Theo, Rachel said, her expression suddenly vulnerable. In case it wasn't clear, I love you, both of you. I'm in this for as long as you'll have me. The words he'd been afraid to acknowledge, even to himself, finally found their voice. I love you too. God help me, but I do. When he kissed her, there on a park bench on an ordinary Sunday morning, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. 6 months later, Theo found himself standing in the newly completed community center in East Tampa. Surveying the work, his small but growing construction company had completed on schedule and under budget. The contract for the center had been his company's first major project, won on merit, as Rachel had insisted, though her foundation was the client. It's perfect, Rachel said, coming to stand beside him in the sunny central atrium. Exactly what we envisioned. We make a good team, Theo smiled, putting his arm around her shoulders. The best, she agreed, leaning into him. Speaking of which, Lily wants us to help finish her science project when we get home. Home. Their home, a modest but comfortable house they'd purchased together, halfway between Rachel's old neighborhood and Theo's apartment, representing the middle ground they'd found in so many aspects of their lives. Rachel had officially stepped back from day-to-day operations at Zimmerman Developments to focus on the foundation full-time, finding purpose in work that aligned with her values. Theo's company was slowly building a reputation for quality, affordable housing, with 3 projects currently in development and a growing staff of skilled workers. Did she decide on the volcano or the solar system? Theo asked as they walked toward the exit. Neither. Now she wants to do something about ocean currents, Rachel laughed. Wonder where she got that idea. Can't imagine, Theo said, smiling at the memory of that fateful day at the beach that had changed everything. As they reached Theo's truck, he still insisted on driving it. Despite being able to afford something newer, Rachel stopped him with a hand on his arm. You know, I never properly thanked you, she said. For what? The community center? For saving me, she clarified, her green eyes serious. Not just from drowning that day, but from the life I was drowning in. You pulled me out of that too. Theo touched her face gently. We saved each other. That evening, as they sat at the kitchen table helping Lily with her project, surrounded by craft supplies and science books, Theo looked at the 2 people who had become his world. His daughter, growing more confident and curious every day. And Rachel, who had swum into their lives and created something he'd never thought possible, a family complete in every way that mattered. Sometimes the most unexpected currents carried you exactly where you needed to be.